Have you ever tried to draw a character in perspective, but no matter how much time you spend fixing it, it just looks scuffed? Because I struggled with the same thing. Therefore, I wanted to spend a week practicing drawing bodies in perspective. And here are 5 quick lessons that I've learned. So here we have a couple of studies that I did to improve my bodies in perspective. So let's just jump into the first lesson, which is probably the most important one, and it's to simplify your body parts into basic shapes. So trust me, it's much easier to draw a simplified shape in perspective than it is to draw a body part, a full anatomy body part. So for example, legs and arms can be simplified into just basic cylinders. Like here can do something like this, boom, and we have a cylinder. Here another one, boom, and it's definitely much easier to draw that in perspective than it is to draw all these muscles. So the same with the arm. So here we have a cylinder like this, and here we have another one, boom, 2 cylinders in perspective. Also, joints can be drawn as a simple ball, it's also useful, and the upper body and lower body can be just drawn as a simple box, though you might lose some gestures whenever you do that, so be careful. We have an upper body, and the same we can do with a simple other box for the lower torso. And here we have like a spine or something, boom, pretty simple. But also we can draw other shapes as simplified. For example, we can draw something like this. It's also really good, and it's basically what you see here, which is this shape, boom. Okay, so yeah, triangles are also super useful because they have sides. So with that you can see the perspective. For example, this would be a triangle here, and here another one, smaller one. But whenever I draw the simple body parts, I do a little bit complicated. So for example, here you can see basically I start with an oval, then I just try to do like an underwear shape, belly button. Okay, boom. Let's add just a simple leg like this. So for example, this is what I do for like hips. Now this shape I use for legs. The same with actually this one here, bottom leg, boom, simple shape. Same for knee here. But even like starting with super simple skeleton when drawing bodies in perspective can be really useful. You can just make a new layer, this layer decrease opacity, and then draw on top the correct thing that you want to draw. That can also be really useful. And like for arm, what I actually like to do is basic cylinder with 2 triangles on the sides. It's just really nice. It shows the form really nicely. And also with a simple mannequin, like even this, you can already tell if the perspective will be good, will be right, or will be off. And if you just go straight into details, for example here I just first sketched out the basic skeleton, basic neck, then, and basically with a simple mannequin we can already tell if the perspective looks right or if it needs a little bit of adjustments. You can already tell what the character is doing, what's the perspective, also with this foreshortening here. So they simplify your body into basic shapes. It will be much easier to draw that in perspective. And also, if you want my brushes, they are free in description, and with them you also get 30 art tips that will improve your art in 30 days. And also all the studies I'll put on my Patreon, so you can check it out probably this week. So yeah, now let's go to the next one, which is observation, which is probably also one of the most important like lessons that you can learn. And I actually do this all the time whenever I'm drawing some, not even bodies, but everything, clothes, hair, everything. So pretty much first we want to observe our reference, and these are poses from Pose Maniacs. They're for free, you can check it out, it's really good, but it's a little bit stiff because it's, you know, 3D. So yeah, just get a reference, then take a couple of seconds before drawings. You can take even more time. Just observe the reference, observe all the relationships, the proportions, the angles between them. So first I just measure how many heads is the whole body, but like in more dramatic perspective like this from bottom, what I do is I just measure the upper body, the ratio between upper body and the lower body. And here you can see that the upper body is way smaller than the lower body, but still it's super useful to actually take the length of the face of the head and just go and measure how many heads are in different things. So what I also like to observe is the relationships between landmarks. So pretty much I'll see where does the elbow aligns with what. So for example, here we can see with hip, and here we kinda with knee. Same for example here, this knee here. I'll see the angle between them, and whenever I draw, let's say, and then we have this angle here, perhaps something like this, and then the same angle here. So pretty much it's the same like this. So it's, and yeah, pretty much just observe the landmarks and it will make your life much easier. So I used to wonder why whenever I'm drawing from a reference, it doesn't really look like it? And the answer was simple. I just didn't measure things. What I would do, I would just go straight into it. Boom, boom, no measurements. And yeah, why does it not look like the reference? Okay, because I didn't measure. So I don't know the angle between the knees, these ones, the elbows, like this, boom. So I can see that the face is a little bit curved, and yeah, I just never done that. So now I'm doing this all the time. But also we can see the negative spaces. So for example, here we see that the negative space is basically the space that there's nothing. So for example, here we see a 1. So we can actually recreate the same shape here again. It goes like that, boom, boom, that. So there would be the knuckle, boom, boom, and boom. And with that we have like more accurate shape here, and we know that because of that we have to make the chest a little bit higher, but also the whole head, the arm, chest. And it's actually super useful to look for these negative spaces. For example, even here we have a negative space like this. Here we have this triangle. Also here we have another one, boom, boom. And yeah, so yeah, measure proportions, look for landmarks, relationships between them, and negative spaces to draw much easier the poses in perspective. Also, it applies to pretty much everything. Now let's go to the next one, which is perspective. It's probably the foundation of everything in this video. So real quick about perspective. So we have like a small frame with some landscape, okay? So first we have horizon line. It's usually at about eye level of the viewer. So pretty much this is the sky and this is the ground. Horizon line can be higher, can be lower. It depends, you know, if you're like elevated or if you're like not elevated. But then we have vanishing points, which are pretty much points on the horizon line that every point just converges to them. So they pretty much just shoot straight lines. And here we can probably just take this brush here and boom, one vanishing point. And with one vanishing point, we have a 1 point perspective. So obviously here we can just draw on that, do this, do that, boom, 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 boom. And we have a box in 1 point perspective. But now what happens if we add another point? Then we'll get a 2 point perspective. So let's do that real quick, boom, boom, and add it on the same horizon line, boom, 2 of them. Okay, now go take the brush. And again, here, let's just draw something, draw a box. So here, let's do this. Okay, if we do something like that, just super useful to just draw on the grid, boom, this and this converges to here. But now basically these lines here go to this, boom and boom. Now these lines here go to this, boom and boom. Also these ones goes here and this goes here. But we have these lines here on the sides, and here just comes the 3 point perspective. So let me show you real quick. If we add another one, another vanishing point, you'll see that we'll get a 3 point perspective. Let's also make it a little bit bigger like this. Okay, and here let's draw another cube, but this time using all these 3 points. So for example, just do something like that, boom, boom. Just use this. This just goes straight into almost here. So let's make it like that. Boom. Now these actually converges to this point. You have to take that and go here. Boom. Same with this. Go here. Boom. And here we have this and that. Here we have like a box in 3 point perspective. So pretty much the same we can do with bodies. So for example, here we can draw a simple head. Boom, boom. And just remember that it converges to this point. It's really good to draw things in perspective. So it probably would be something like that, boom. So yeah, here also a useful thing that we can do is whenever we draw something in 3D space, like let's say this cylinder here, let's say this is like a one side here, boom, this is the middle. What we can do to actually emphasize the perspective, the curvature of this thing, is we can do a simple wrapping line. And with that, it's much easier to show form, and it's amazing whenever you sketch. So going back here, we can see that we have also wrapping lines here that show the perspective. Same here, boom, same here, boom, boom, same as here. This this goes towards us almost. Same here, torso here. It's super useful to show the form and perspective of the object. So yeah, wrapping lines are open. And here, if the wrapping line is pointing up, it means that the object is above the horizon line. And if the object would be something like that, if the lines were pointing down, it means that it's below the horizon line. For example, here we see that here we have the horizon line and the block is below that, so we see the top. If the object is above the horizon line, we see the bottom of it, for example here, and here is the top because it's below. So same with characters. If we have character or a body part that is above the horizon line, which could say that the horizon line is somewhere here. Here we see this pointing up, same with this, boom. And for example here, we see that this is pointing down. So here the horizon line would be probably somewhere even more, maybe higher. And this is pretty much the 3-point perspective. We see that here the body converges. So it's super useful also when you want to draw foreshortenings. So for example, here we see that it comes at us, points up, and this cylinder comes at us. Same with this hips here, same with this leg here, the arm here, leg here, and leg here goes at us, so we can draw this like that. So speaking of foreshortenings, here we basically want to remember the things that are closer to the camera, to the viewer, will be much larger than the things that are further away. So for example, these hands here are obviously different sizes. This one is closer to the camera, and because of that it's much bigger than this one, which is much further. Same with these. Here we have this leg here, which is pretty big. Same with this knee, it's closer to the camera, and here the head is going away. Same with this. This is pretty far and this is pretty close. So this feet is much larger than this here, the face. And when drawing foreshortenings, it's super important to use references. You can do them yourself. You can just take 3D models again. You can use something like Blender or Dust 3D, where you can pose your 3D models and change the settings of the camera. So yeah, obviously here we can take this and move it here, and we see that the head is much smaller than the feet. But also one super useful thing is to do wrapping line. So as I said before, it's pretty good for drawing the foreshortenings. So if then we don't really have to draw the object and then the wrapping lines, we can just, to be honest, do wrapping lines and just then do something like that, and just small, bigger, bigger, bigger. And we see that it goes at us. Here it tapers like that. For example, here again, boom, 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 boom. But also one thing that is super OP whenever you do the foreshortening is T-lines. So what are T-lines? Imagine two balls, okay? One ball and the second ball. And one ball is in front of the other, front, back, okay? And now here, when the outlines of these objects meet, we'll see something like T-line. Here's one T-line and here's another. What it does, it basically shows overlap between these objects and adds a lot of depth. So for example, here we'll have this here. You see that this one is in front of this. Another one here, another one a little smaller because this muscle goes here. Here would be another T-line, boom, even here, this, boom. Here it basically just shows a lot of overlap, this and that. There's a lot of T-lines which are super useful whenever you draw foreshortened poses. Now let's go to something that will help you with drawing bodies in perspective, which is boxes. So pretty much how you can use them. You can first start by drawing a box. So whenever you draw a thing in the box, you see that you just follow the perspective basically. So what you can do is either just first start by drawing this box in 3D, which is sometimes pretty hard. Now a quick tip to get the middle of it, it's not here, see the same size here, same here. It's basically just connect this corner with this corner and this corner with this corner. And here we have where the point, where the two lines meet, we have our middle. So pretty much if this was like straight on like that, this would be here, but this is going down. So yeah, it's middle of this. Boom. Same with this pose here. So we see that the upper body here is much bigger than the lower body here. So coming back to the box. So you can either just start by drawing the box and then you draw the thing inside, or what I do is basically I just imagine the box. So whenever I'm drawing something, I just imagine the box. So for example, this will be the face. I just imagine the perspective lines here, then here, boom, 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 like that, boom. Then drawing, let's say, the shoulders. I also imagine still here would be collarbone, like that, boom, boom. Okay, then shoulders here. This goes basically down like here, and basically the whole pose would go down. I just imagine that in my head, and you can do the same. And then pretty much, let's say this is the middle of the body, the legs. It would be pretty dramatic perspective. But either just start with drawing the box, then just draw the shapes inside, or just try to keep that in mind. And also remember, whenever you draw the box, to keep these curves, like the wrapping lines here, them also here. So it would be something like that. Boom. You don't have to draw all of them like I did before, just now. You can just draw the body part, and obviously legs here go like that. Boom. So for example, here you see that we still see that these wrapping lines go point up, because the perspective, basically this is like a weird view. Same from this, we see that these point down, these point up. So pretty much every line should have this curve here, like that, this here, like this arm here, even the clavicles here, the face, boom, the rib cage, pubic bone, boom, boom, boom. And same with here. So up, 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 and up here, up here, up here. This is super important and super useful. Now also there will be more in-depth tutorial on my Patreon this week, so you can check it out and get this tutorial. But also there will be a normal tutorial probably in a day or two on my YouTube channel. But yeah, to recap everything, we need to, and we want to, simplify the bodies into basic shapes. We have like a cylinder here, boom, boom. It makes drawing bodies in perspective much easier. So here would be another cylinder, something like this, boom, boom. It's much easier with breaking with simple shapes. Then what we want to do is measure everything. So all the angles, the proportions, how big is the upper torso compared to the, so how big is the upper body compared to lower body, what are the relationships between landmarks like shoulders, like pubic bone, all the angles, different landmarks like here, like this, boom, even shoulders here, the knees here, boom, the ankles here. All the negative spaces, for example, like here, this can be a negative space, this can be a negative space, or even here, boom. It will help you make more accurate poses. Then obviously the perspective, so the horizon line, the vanishing points, the 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, or even fisheye perspective, the wrapping lines that will make it much easier to show the forms in your sketches, boom, boom, boom. Obviously that the shapes actually taper when drawing in perspective, that sometimes also they deform like here. And then obviously drawing foreshortened bodies, so pretty much the closer the thing is to camera, the bigger it will be, like this fit here, and the further it will be, the smaller, and the further it is, the smaller it, and the further it is, the smaller it will be, like these hands here. And obviously the wrapping lines, which are super useful when drawing foreshortened things. And then we have the box, which will help us a lot with drawing bodies in perspective. So we can either start by drawing the box and then just try to draw the body inside it, or just keep that in mind with all the angles and the perspective in mind. But now if you're struggling with drawing simple bodies, then you can check out this video where I go and show you how to actually draw simple bodies. Bye.